Hello and welcome to the Baby Quiz. In this first programme we're going to look at the progress of the baby before it's born, through pregnancy and up to birth. Our second programme will explore the baby's life from the moment of birth right through its first year. The idea is to have a bit of fun, testing your knowledge on a whole range of questions about pregnancy and babies, and to listen to the experts' answers. And our experts are paediatric Dr. Harriet Hargreaves, a GP, Dr. Richard Sheriff, pharmacist Wally Dove, and midwife Anne Remmers. But I'm going to put the questions to you first. Maybe you can outshine the professionals. We have 3 rounds. You can be team captain. Pencils and paper ready. Here we go with round 1. So, round 1 looks at the time leading up to the baby's birth. Question 1 refers to your antenatal card. Now, amongst the jargon on it, you may well come across some abbreviations. Do you know what the following stand for? BP, HB, BG, or PRES? What do those abbreviations stand for? Question 2. For the average mum-to-be, how much weight might you expect to gain during the course of pregnancy? Would it be 8 kilograms, which is about 18 pounds, 12 kilograms, which is 26 pounds, 16 kilograms, which is 35 pounds, or 20 kilograms, which is 44 pounds? 8 kilograms, 12 kilograms, 16 kilograms, or 20 kilograms? How much would you expect to gain during the average pregnancy? Question 3 suggests, please, 3 ways of easing morning sickness. I hope you don't get it, but that's the question. 3 ways of easing morning sickness. Here now is a table with 12 different foods on it. We have fruit, vegetables, cheese, eggs, pâté, fast foods, meat, fish, cereal. 4 of these aren't ideal for you during pregnancy. Can you identify them? 4 foods which aren't really advisable during the course of a pregnancy. Question 5 looks at symptoms and worries you might have during your pregnancy. And we've taken 2 examples for you. A, loss of blood, and B, constipation. Now, if you suffer from either of these, which course of action should you take? If you suffer from loss of blood, should you 1, consult immediately, 2, consult as soon as convenient, or 3, wait for the next appointment? And the same thing for B, constipation. Do you consult immediately, or as soon as convenient, or do you wait for your next appointment? And also for each of these problems, write down who would be the most likely person to consult. Would it be the midwife, the GP, or the pharmacist? As a pregnant mum, you're entitled to quite a number of state benefits, such as free maternity care and prescriptions. Question 6 is, what else can you add to this list? What other benefits and allowances can you add? So how did you get on? If you're past the pregnancy stage now, brings back a few memories, doesn't it? But before we hear from our team, let's give you the answers. Question 1 was about those abbreviations you can find on your antenatal card. BP is blood pressure, in fact, stands for blood pressure. HB is hemoglobin, that's the amount of iron in your blood. BG stands for blood group. And PRES is short for presentation, which is the position of the baby in the womb. Right, now question 2 refers to the weight an average mum-to-be might expect to gain during her pregnancy. And the answer, in fact, is 12 kilograms. That's 2 stone or 28 pounds. Now, don't worry if you're not conforming to that. It is only an average weight. Question 3, did you pick out 3 ways of easing morning sickness? Here are a few recommendations. First of all, in the morning, get up slowly. Have a warm drink perhaps before you get up and a slice of dry toast or a dry biscuit. Delicious. Have frequent small meals rather than fewer large meals. Try to avoid fatty or spicy foods, and do drink plenty of fluid between meals. That helps a lot. And finally, it does help also to avoid cooking food with strong smells. Well, now to our table of foods which aren't advisable during pregnancy. That was question 4. The ones that aren't advisable really are fast foods. They're usually rather fatty foods. Not a good idea. Soft cheeses such as brie and camembert, especially those which are made with unpasteurised milk, because they could give you a nasty listeria infection. The same, I'm afraid, goes for pâté. And the last in our list of foods to be avoided at this stage of pregnancy is soft eggs, because of the risk of salmonella. And you should also, of course, if you can, avoid alcohol. Right, question 5, who to call and when? Your answers should be these. For A, which was loss of blood, the answer is 1, to consult immediately your GP or midwife. For B, for constipation, the answer is 2, as soon as convenient. And I'm quite sure your pharmacist will be able to offer advice here. You could also experience other problems during pregnancy, and I'm going to suggest what action you could take perhaps for a few more of the common problems. For example, if you begin to feel faint or giddy, you should contact your midwife or GP immediately. For things like indigestion, that's pretty common, or a sore throat, your pharmacist will be able to advise you when you're next out shopping. And if you need help deciding what state benefits you're entitled to, ask your midwife or your health visitor. Right, on to question 6. And question 6 looked at the state benefits which in certain circumstances you're entitled to. I mentioned free maternity care and free prescriptions, but you can add to that list free dental care, maternity pay or allowance, child benefit, and if you're on a low income, payment from the social fund. These booklets are available from your local social security office, and they'll give you all the details you need. So how did you do? 6 out of 6 or a few less? Award yourself a cup of chamomile tea. But before you put the kettle on, let's consider the points raised by the questions and answers with Richard Sheriff, our GP, Anne Remmers, the midwife, and Wally Dove, our pharmacist. Richard, first of all, let's start from the moment that pregnancy is confirmed. When it happened to me, I thought I had to rush off and do things straight away, but I was surprised to find you don't actually do a lot at all.
No, I think the important thing is to enjoy it and to come along to see your doctor with your husband or partner preferably to discuss just some general points that may be worrying you about the pregnancy, and also to get into the system for antenatal care.
And what do you find does tend to worry people most at that stage?
I think there are 2 things mainly. Usually with a lady, it's, if she's working, is whether she can carry on with her occupation. And in most cases, this is obviously no problem at all. Occasionally we have the odd astronaut that drops in who we have to advise not to work. But usually there's no problem. And the other problem that is commonly asked about is sexual intercourse, whether in fact it's okay for couples to continue. And I think this is a very personal matter that they can decide upon themselves by and large. It's very rare that we have to advise against it.
Anne Remmers, from your point of view as a midwife, planning those 9 months, again, there's not a lot to do in the early months, is there?
No, but it's important to meet your midwife and to discuss your plan of care, when you need to go for checkups, what will happen at your checkup, and where will you need to go, the hospital or the antenatal clinic.
And Wally, obviously there'll be a few visits during this time to the pharmacist. I know I needed to know, for example, what medicines you're allowed to take when you're pregnant.
Yes, it's a jolly good time, in fact, to review your medicine cabinet, to look at all those medicines you've got. And it's important to remember, even with things like herbal medicines, that they can contain quite some potent things. And it's, you really need to discuss things with your pharmacist or with your GP and not take things unless they're really 100% necessary.
What other advice do you have to give? I suppose morning sickness is a common problem.
Yes, this is one that crops up a lot, and again, we tend to give fairly conservative advice on this. You definitely shouldn't take medication for this unless your doctor insists on it. There are lots of other ways. You can look at your diet, you can look at your cooking methods, and you can even actually get bands that go on your wrist and press the acupuncture point. So there are other ways of dealing with it.
Right. And Dr. Sheriff, can you give us some general tips on looking after ourselves during pregnancy?
Yes, I think the points that apply in pregnancy tend to apply in life in general, so there's nothing specific really. Obviously diet's very important, and we would advise a lady to watch her diet very carefully. She doesn't necessarily need to put on the standard amount of weight that women usually put on in pregnancy if she's a little overweight to start with. Similarly, we would give her advice about smoking and obviously encourage her not to smoke during pregnancy. And it's a very good incentive pregnancy to stop smoking. And also care with alcohol, to try and abstain from alcohol if at all possible, but certainly to cut it down to a minimum.
And Anne, you really get into the more detailed preparation towards the end of the pregnancy, don't you? What sort of things happen then?
Yes, well, by then you will have decided obviously where you want to have your baby, whether you're going to have your baby at home or in hospital, and to think about how to prepare for that. If you're going into hospital, what you will need to take into hospital with you, how to prepare yourself for the labour, to think about pain relief and those sort of things, and discuss those with your midwife as well.
And what sort of thing do you advise on buying in advance? Some nappies and bottles and sterilising units and all that sort of thing?
Yes, I mean, it's good to have be prepared with a few nappies and cleaning lotion and cotton wool, all that sort of thing comes in handy. But of course there is always time. Sometimes the baby comes before you're prepared. There is always time for someone to go out to the shops for you, but it's nice to be prepared beforehand.
Again, Wally, I suppose that's where the pharmacist comes in a lot.
Yes, I think it is, and I think it is best to be prepared. It isn't not necessary to go over the top. You just need a basic range of things because there is going to be time, as was pointed out, to get other things after the birth.
Right. Well, team, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. And we're going to round 2. The moment has come, and by one method of transport or another, we've arrived at the hospital. There's no turning back. Now, on arrival, you'll be examined by the midwife. And I'd like you, as question 1, to name 4 standard procedures in the midwife's pre-birth examination. Here's a list of things she might do. Which 4 might she do to you? Would she take your temperature? Would she take your blood pressure? Would she shave you? Would she monitor your baby's heartbeat? Would she give you an enema? Would she give you an internal and external examination? Or would she fit you with a cervical collar? Which of those would you expect to happen to you? Question 2, we're going to look now at a picture of a typical delivery room. And do you know what the pieces of equipment are that you're about to see and what they're used for? This is the first one. There's the second one now. That's a third piece of equipment. And there's the fourth one. 4 important pieces of equipment in the delivery room. Did you manage to identify what they were? Question 3 in this round concerns labour pain. Now, can you identify 4 ways to help relieve labour pain? Here are some picture clues. There's one way of relieving pain. There's another way going on there. And another one. And a 4th method of easing labour pain. Can you identify what they are? Question 4. Caesarean section is chosen as the delivery method when a normal birth is considered by the obstetrician to be unwise. And what's the origin of the word caesarean? And can you give 2 reasons why a caesarean birth might be necessary? Okay. Question 5. Now your baby is born. What is the procedure immediately after birth? What happens to the baby? Question 6, another chance to put some letters and numbers together. 36 hours after the birth, let's say you and your baby are back home. There are 2 common problems which can occur. A, the baby gets nappy rash, or B, the baby's persistently crying. Very worrying. How should you cope? Should you, 1, consult somebody immediately, 2, as soon as it's convenient, or 3, discuss it at the next appointment with your health visitor, your midwife, your GP, or your pharmacist? Right, if you're not exhausted by all that, let's see how you got on. The answer to question 1, standard procedures in the midwife's pre-birth examination. Here they are. She would take your temperature, she would take your blood pressure, she'd give you an internal and external examination, she would monitor your baby's heartbeat, but you wouldn't be shaved these days or have an enema, and you certainly wouldn't have a cervical collar, that's to support your neck. Trick question there. Answer 2, in that question we showed you some equipment in the delivery room, and let's, for the answers, hear our midwife taking us on a guided tour.
This is a resuscitaire, and there's one of these in every delivery room in this hospital. Sometimes the babies need a little bit of extra help after they're born, so we would bring them to the resuscitaire to do this. If they're born with a lot of extra secretions in their nose and mouth, then we may need to use this suction. Sometimes the babies are a little bit sleepy when they're born and they need some oxygen just to help them to wake up. Here we've got the oxygen on tap. We can just blow this little mask over the baby's face to help him to wake up. Now let's look at another piece of equipment. This is a Pinard stethoscope. It looks old-fashioned, but it's very effective. And yes, that's lovely. A nice steady heartbeat. Here's another piece of equipment that we can use to monitor the baby's heartbeat. It's called a fetal heart monitor. It can be used with the belts to attach it to Caroline's tummy to pick up the strength of her contractions. Can also be used to pick up the baby's heartbeat. When we switch the machine on, we will hear the baby's heartbeat and also see the tracing of the baby's heartbeat on the graph paper and the strength of Caroline's contractions. Here we have what is known as Entonox, which is a form of pain relief. It's also known as gas and oxygen and is a mixture of nitrous oxide and oxygen. The mother simply places this over her nose and mouth to receive the gas and oxygen.
Right, our third question looked at ways of relieving labour pains, and here's our selection of answers. You may well have some additional ones of your own.
And breathe out through your mouth.
Relaxation and breathing is probably one of the simplest and most effective ways you can help to relieve your labour pains.
And out through your mouth.
Secondly, to be in a warm bath can help to make you feel more comfortable. And if your partner wants to massage your back, that can also help. A little bit later on in the labour, you could be offered a TENS machine. Now that stands for Transcutaneous Electrical Nerve Stimulation, which, it's believed, helps to increase the output of endorphins. Those are your body's own natural painkillers.
Tingling sensation in your back.
A pethidine injection is another pain-relieving method. And of course you could have an epidural, which is an injection into the spine.
Just clean your skin here, it feels a bit cold.
The answer to question 4, where did the word caesarean come from? Well, Caesar himself was the earliest recorded example of a caesarean delivery back in 101 BC. And here are some reasons for selecting a caesarean. First of all, because the baby's heartbeat shows that the contractions are too much for it. Secondly, it may be that the mother's pelvis is too small. Thirdly, the placenta is in the lower part of the uterus instead of the upper part, which is the more usual. And fourthly, the baby is in a breech position, that is with its feet down rather than its head down. It's not known which one of those applied to Mrs. Caesar, I'm afraid. The answer to question 5, what did you think happens to a newborn baby? Well, roughly speaking, what you could expect is, first of all, to see the baby. But after you've had an opportunity to hold him for a moment, he'll probably have his umbilical cord cut and he may need the airways cleared so that he or she can breathe properly. The baby will then be weighed and measured. And then after all that, it's time for another cuddle before a well-deserved sleep for all of you. Right now, the answer to question 6, which was the letter and number question. Who to turn to and when, once you're at home and certain symptoms appear. The answers to A, the nappy rash problem, was 2. As soon as convenient, you should consult your health visitor or your pharmacist. The answer to B, which was persistent and worrying crying, is 1. To consult your health visitor or your midwife or GP immediately. Again, other problems you might experience could be your baby is bringing up food, that's quite common, posseting as it's known, in which case you should seek immediate consultation with your health visitor, your midwife or your GP. If your baby's not sleeping very well, tell your health visitor or midwife on your next visit. If you suspect constipation, ask your health visitor or your pharmacist for advice. Well, there's a lot to consider there. I wonder how you got on. You'll be needing each other's help at this stage, of course. Our midwife, Anne Remmers, is joined now by our paediatric doctor, Harriet Hargreaves, and our pharmacist, Wally Dove. First of all, Wally, you'll have a lot of questions, I suppose, thrown at you at this time, just before the birth.
Yes, I think a lot of mums or mums-to-be are worried about, for example, the effect of some of the medicines they might be taking in breast milk. I mean, there are a lot of things passed in breast milk to the baby, useful things like antibodies, which gives them natural immunity, but some medicines can be passed through, and the best thing again is to check with your pharmacist, and if he has any doubt at all, he'll refer you to the GP if necessary.
Now, Anne, one of our questions there took us inside the delivery room. What do you find the most common worries of mothers-to-be are with all the hardware, and what's to be expected in the delivery room?
Well, I think a very common problem is women want to know whether they will know whether they're in labour for a start, and that advice to that would be to go along to classes and find out as much as possible about what will happen, and to be prepared so that they have a chance to discuss the different apparatus that may be presented to them when they go into the delivery room.
And even with a second pregnancy, each pregnancy isn't necessarily the same, is it?
No, not at all, and in fact it's very unusual for two labours to go identically. So you need to be prepared and need to be open-minded and to learn as much as possible about what may happen.
And we mentioned caesarean births as well there. Again, people presumably often don't know whether they're going to have a caesarean or not.
No, some people know that they're going to have a caesarean, there's a particular reason, and they will have a planned day when to go into hospital to have their baby. Other people it may actually be an emergency caesarean, that it won't be known that it's necessary until they're in labour. So you always have to have these possibilities at the back of your mind.
And Anne, how does the new mum tend to be feeling once the baby's born?
Well, a whole range of emotions. I mean, some people feel wonderfully high and some people feel actually a bit low and a bit despondent that they're not feeling totally attached to the baby straight away.
And sometimes both at the same time.
Absolutely, yes. There's no knowing how you will feel. But that's very common. Those emotions are very common feelings to have. And also mainly an incredible amount of tiredness. I think that's what most women find in the first few days and weeks when they've just had a new baby, the broken nights and the constant demand on them. And that's the time when I think friends and relatives need to be helpful rather than going around visiting all the time and expecting cups of tea.
Now, Dr. Hargreaves, of course, your expertise comes in once the baby's born. Can you give us a rundown on exactly what you do?
Depends very much what type of birth you're having. If the birth is absolutely straightforward, there won't be a paediatric doctor actually at the birth, but there will be one on the premises who can come if there's any problem at the birth, and this will be problems with breathing when the baby's just born, or if anything untoward happens. If it's a complicated birth, like a caesarean section, a forceps, then the paediatric doctor will be there at the birth, and obviously if the baby's premature, there will be a paediatric doctor there to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Otherwise, you come to the fore more in the 2 or 3 days afterwards.
Well, within 24 hours of the birth, the baby will be examined by a paediatric doctor and to make sure that there are no problems there. And if there seem to be any problems, obviously the baby can be examined again at any time. And if the baby's ill at all, the paediatric doctors will be involved. If the baby's in the special care baby unit, they'll be very much involved with the baby.
And Wally, once you get home with the baby, then I think people often forget that pharmacists are actually highly trained and skilled, and you can get a lot of advice over the counter rather than rushing off to your GP every time you have a worry.
Yes, that's true. I mean, as pharmacists, we are directly accessible to the public. We don't have a receptionist in between us and you. So mums should remember that pharmacists are there, and they can often give good advice and provide medication for what we call minor ailments. That's not to trivialise them at all. But if it is more important, obviously we would then refer them to their GP for other advice.
Right, Wally, Anne, Harriet, thank you very much indeed for the moment. Now, in this next round, we're going to highlight the role of your partner through pregnancy and the birth. The questions will range over the whole time span of this programme, right through pregnancy and the first 36 hours of your baby's life. Right, question 1. We'll start with a letter and number question. It obviously affects mum, but the partner's help and advice is vital at this stage. And here are 2 things which may well happen towards the end of your pregnancy. A, your membranes will rupture, or your waters break, as they say. And B, you have irregular contractions. Now, in each case, should the action be to 1, stay at home, 2, to go to hospital, 3, to ring your midwife or GP and go to hospital? Which of those? Right, question 2. A special question for your partner. Now, you've both agreed you'll be present during the birth, so you'll be in the delivery room. But what exactly do you expect to be doing? How do you think you'll be able to help?
Deep and steady.
Question 3. In this question, we're assuming the birth has now taken place and that it's time for mother and baby to come home. So, off you set to collect them. You'll need clothes for mum and suitable transport. Take a look at this film sequence and note 6 faults in this dance arrangements. Pretty obvious stuff, but a number of useful points do arise from this film sequence. Okay? Question 4. Suggest 3 ways in which your partner can help you both during pregnancy and in the first few hours of your baby's life. Well, I hope you and your partner and family and friends enjoyed those questions. Let's now take a look at the answers, and then we can discuss them with our experts. The answer to question 1, I asked you about 2 things which were likely to occur towards the end of your pregnancy. What should you do? I hope your partner got these right, because you could well be relying on him at this stage. Our answers are A, if your membranes rupture or your waters break. 3, ring the midwife, GP or hospital, who will then tell you to go straight to hospital. And the answer to B, which was having irregular contractions, is 1, stay at home. Other possibilities at this stage might be that you feel you can't cope on your own anymore, or that your contractions are coming every 10 minutes, in which case you should contact the hospital's maternity unit and let them know you're on your way in. And if you see that you're losing more than a small amount of blood, you should ring your midwife, your GP or the hospital immediately. The second question looked at your partner's role during the actual delivery, and here are some ideas. He can be by your side, soothing you. He can be applying a cool flannel to your forehead. Massaging your back is wonderfully helpful. He can be helping to give you gas and oxygen, and he can be encouraging your breathing pattern. Right, question 3, the film sequence, shot, I hasten to tell you, with an actor playing the part of the husband, luckily. But let's run through that again. Now, the clothes you wear when you come out of hospital should be planned beforehand. Your figure probably won't be back to normal so soon after the birth, and you'll need to be comfortable. My husband forgot to bring any at all. Transport really ought to be reliable. If you're in doubt, order a taxi. The baby should be carried in the back seat for safety, ideally in a carry cot, secured with a proper harness. But certainly don't use one safety belt for you and the baby. And do remember, if you're a smoker, it really is best to try not to smoke inside the car. Help mum out when you arrive home. Take her case and give her and the baby a hand into the house, which should, incidentally, be looking as though you were expecting them. Well, now to the answer, or I should say answers, to question 4, the last question in this round and in the programme. I asked you for ways your partner can help during pregnancy. And who better to provide the answers than our special guest, Claire Rayner. Now, Claire, can we start then with the partner's role? What's really expected of the partner? How can he help?
Well, it's changed so much over the years. Modern fathers-to-be are very much part of the team. It's seen as something they're involved with from the beginning. They know the moment their wife's pregnant. You know that funny scene you used to get in old-fashioned movies when she came and said, I'm going to have a baby, and he is absolutely gobsmacked. Couldn't happen today. Modern men know when their wives' periods are. They understand how her body works, so they'll know when she's pregnant. They'll know they've been trying to have a baby. In the modern mode, in the ideal family, it's regarded as best if a man is involved. He helps much more in the house perhaps than he would normally, especially if she's got a job as well while she's pregnant. He will go along to antenatal classes. He'll look at the whole pattern of their life together and find ways to get used to things that we'll have to get used to afterwards. That is, think forward to the time, well, when we can't do that, how are we going to cope? We, for example, I remember with our first baby, we saved babysitting money right from the moment we got pregnant because we knew we wouldn't be able to afford to go out afterwards if we didn't do it then.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that men can often think about, that wives, mothers who got more involved with their physical changes might not think of. And getting things ready. That's great fun for a couple to do together. If they're lucky enough to have a home with a nursery, a room they can put together, you know, this can be a tremendous thing. And it does make it feel, as I say, like a family effort.
Yeah, and walking together around department stores, looking at baby clothes and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, modern men love doing it, but I think we must take into account cultural differences. It's no good saying to a family in which this is not the norm, this is what you should be doing. It'll only make people stressed and uncomfortable and miserable. Essentially, it's got to be what's right for you as a couple. And some mothers, quite honestly, are much happier tooling around the department store with their own mums or their mums-in-law and don't really want a husband along. They want to do it on their own. You've got to be allowed to be flexible. And I think one of the most dangerous things is to make hard rules for every single family. I mean, Asian families, for example, operate sometimes in a different way. It'll be a much more a female-centred thing. The man's proud and enjoys what his new status is. He's a father-to-be, but not quite as involved, perhaps, if he's from a traditional family. If he's a modern man, he'll be different.
But in all cases, both for husband and wife, it's a huge change to come to grips with, isn't it? I mean, no matter how much babysitting money you save, your social life is not for sticks because you don't get much sleep.
Absolutely, that's part of it. Sharing out sleep nights, by the way. If you're breastfeeding as a mother, of course, you don't get the choice. But if, in fact, you're not, and sometimes mothers aren't, they're making a plan so that you can sleep 2 nights a week, say the weekends when he doesn't have to get up because he hasn't got to go to work, and he gets up and does the middle of the night feeding, can be absolutely marvellous. I speak from bitter experience, that's what we did. Things like that. And I think one thing that is very important is for a mother to make it clear to herself that this is not her baby, it's our baby. And not saying, I will allow to a husband, I'll allow you to pick him up or allow you to do things. Take it for granted right from the beginning, even before the baby's born.
Yes, you can't
that
expect
he's
him
going
to
to be
be
a hands-on dad.
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Because he can't really be involved if you put up this thus far and no further.
You can't make concessions if you don't include
Exactly.
him.
I mean, I've seen young mothers laughing at a man because he's a bit clumsy when he picks up the baby the first time. That's a terrible thing to do to a chap. You don't have to laugh at him. He's not being funny. He just hasn't had the chance to learn. So the more you can help someone learn and make him feel part of it, the better.
And prepare for it together beforehand. Think about it in advance.
Oh, yes, obviously. I mean, the more people talk, this is the real key. Talk, talk, and more talk. There's the nice talk, choosing names, and quick, he's going to kick, put your hand here, all those nice things. But there are all the other things. Talk about the dreary things. What would we do if we can't get out? What will we do if the baby's not well, or if we have problems? What will we do if we can't cope? All of that. Because if you're ready for the worst, chances are you'll get the best. Does that make sense?
It does. And Claire, thank you very much indeed. Some valuable tips. Thanks a lot. And that ends this first programme. I hope you got on well with those 16 questions. And I do hope you found the answers have been useful. And try showing the tape to your family and friends at the end. You can show off by knowing all the answers this time. In a moment on this tape, we'll be presenting the second programme where we're going to look at a baby's development from day 2 right up to 14 months. However, from me for now, goodbye. Hello and welcome back to our video quiz. In this second programme, we're going to concentrate on your baby's early life from 36 hours old up to 14 months. It's a wonderful, exciting, if tiring time for parents, and probably for the baby too. Now, once again, you're invited to test your knowledge and instincts and see if our panel of experts come up with the same answers as you do. And our panel consists of Dr. Richard Sheriff, our GP, paediatric doctor Harriet Hargreaves, our health visitor Anne Price, and pharmacist Wally Dove. And we'll have some hints for you on safety for the baby at home too. We've split the 3 rounds in this programme into 36 hours to 4 months old, then 5 to 14 months old, and then the parents' role. So sit back comfortably, take the weight off your feet, have a bit of a breather, see how you get on with these questions. Well, assuming all's gone well, we're back at home with a new addition to the family. Now, this round takes us through to the first 4 months of a baby's life. A busy time, to say the least of it, as that small bundle starts to take on a personality of its own. Now, we're going to look at 3 vital areas of our baby's early life: development, health, and the home routine. So here are the questions. Question 1 deals with the early intake of food. From this list of ingredients, which are contained in breast milk? Protein, carbohydrates, fats, minerals, and vitamins. Which of those are contained in breast milk? Right, question 2 is another food question, very important when you're a baby. What average amount of liquid does a 4-month-old baby consume every 24 hours? Is it 50 millilitres per kilo of the baby's weight over 24 hours? Or is it 100 millilitres? 150 millilitres per kilo? Or 200 millilitres per kilo of the baby's weight over 24 hours? Question 3 is on behaviour. Now listen to these 3 recordings of a baby crying and see if you can identify the reasons for them according to this list. Question 4, it's time to put the baby down for a rest. Now make a note of the less sensible features in this film sequence. Right, question 5. We're 8 weeks into this new life and ready for the start of the 2, 3 and 4 month series of vaccinations. Now, it's as well to know what diseases are catered for at this time, and I'd like you to select the 4 which don't apply to babies of this age. Polio, measles, mumps and rubella, tetanus, diphtheria, whooping cough and typhoid. Which of these don't apply to a baby of 4 months old? Question 6 is a 3-part question on the way a baby develops physically over these first 4 months. First of all, what movements in this position would you expect? Would a baby be able to lift its head yet, or would it be able to roll over? Then B, at this age, should you help your baby to sit up? And C, which 4 of these abilities would you expect a baby to achieve at 4 months? Would he or she be able to smile, or feed herself, grasp a toy? Would the baby be able to laugh, say dada and mama, or respond to sounds? Now, which would you expect a baby to be able to do at the age of up to 4 months? Question 7 looks at ailments and that vexing question of when to call the doctor. Of course, the answer must be, if in doubt, always call the doctor. But so often it isn't actually necessary. We're going to be discussing this at the end of the round, but first of all, if your baby has colic, that's A. Should you, 1, discuss with a health visitor or pharmacist, 2, arrange to see your GP when it's convenient, or 3, see your GP urgently. And B, your baby is suffering from convulsions. Again, would it be 1, 2 or 3? Well, there was a lot to cover in that round, but I suppose that's hardly surprising because those first 4 months are so vital in the development of a baby. So let's see how you got on with the answers. The answer to question 1, I asked you for the ingredients of breast milk, and the answer is all of those ingredients. Protein, carbohydrates, fats, minerals and vitamins are all present in breast milk, which is a complete food providing everything a baby needs in the right proportions. The second question, I asked for the average amount of liquid consumed by a 4-month-old every 24 hours. Well, don't worry, of course, if yours is a bit plus or minus. The answer is an average 150 millilitres for every kilo of the baby's weight in 24 hours. So for a 10-pound baby, that's rather astonishing, 1¼ pints a day. Now to the baby's cries, which was question 3. Did you manage to identify those? Again, they're only indications, and each baby creates its own message signals with you, but these give a good idea of what this baby, at any rate, is trying to say. The first one is hunger. Then there's pain. And the last one is tiredness. Right, question 4, and let's look at that sequence of putting a baby down for a rest, poor thing. First of all, do watch out for drafts and try not to line up the cot with the door. The air should all the same be fresh and changing. Secondly, watch the level of heating. Keep the room just at a comfortable temperature. You should put your baby on his side and really not on his stomach. Don't use a pillow because there's a danger of a very young baby perhaps suffocating on a pillow. And watch the size of the holes in a cellular blanket because small fingers and toes can get trapped. Right, now the answer to question 5 about the vaccinations at 2, 3 and 4 months. Now these are the ones which don't apply at this age. Measles, mumps and rubella and typhoid. Those that do apply are polio, tetanus, diphtheria and whooping cough. Question 6 was on development. Now the average baby can achieve these movements and expressions at 4 months old. They can lift their head, and they can roll over. They can be helped to sit up if it seems content to do so on the mother's knee. A baby at this age can smile, can grasp a toy, can laugh and respond to sounds. What they can't do is feed themselves yet, or to say dada or mama. Right, and the last question in this round covered who to call and when if your baby is unwell. If he's A, suffering from colic, the answer is 1. Discuss it with the health visitor or your pharmacist. And B, the problem was experiencing convulsions, in which case the answer is 3. You should see your GP urgently. Other occasions which could cause you to be unsure as to what action to take might be if your baby's finding his breathing difficult or if it's unusually rapid. In that case, you should see your GP urgently. For a high temperature, again, you'd be wise to consult your doctor at the next opportunity. And if your baby has diarrhea, you should see your health visitor or pharmacist, who may well advise you to seek further advice from your GP. Most babies suffer the odd snuffle and sneeze at some stage or another, but mention it to your health visitor or pharmacist. Well, now to expand on those answers, with me are GP Richard Sheriff, health visitor Anne Price, who takes over, of course, from the midwife about 2 weeks after the birth, and pharmacist Wally Dove. So we're going to start with the home routine. Anne, as a health visitor, of course, you're leaned on pretty heavily once mum and baby get home. What do you find are the most common queries and problems you get? A lot, as I remember.
Yes, quite a few, but initially it's the feeding that needs establishing. Most mums will try to breastfeed, hopefully, and it's that is so time-consuming initially. Lots of mums have got the baby feeding every couple of hours and they're quite tired from the baby waking at night, yet they're still trying to produce a cordon bleu meal and look immaculate, keep the home tidy, and very often they need a lot of help and guidance in sorting this all out at first and treating their feeding as a priority.
Yes, I remember terrible feeding problems myself with that first pregnancy. Now, Wally and Richard, really, I suppose both of you are going to be very busy at this time. What do you find, Wally, are the main concerns that people come to you with?
I think probably to pick that last point up, the feeding is one of the initial things that they're talking about, and if they're not breastfeeding, they're worried about what type of milk to use and whether they need any vitamin supplements, and normally pharmacists can advise on these sort of things. And also they're talking to us about all sorts of symptoms that they're seeing in this newborn baby, problems with fever and that sort of thing. Most of the things we can probably sort out, but if we're at all worried, we're going to refer the mum to the GP so that he can make a definitive judgment on it.
And those sort of things will be what, Richard?
Well, I suppose the biggest worry that parents have with newborn children are temperatures and colds. We get an awful lot of parents bringing their babies who have had snuffles and they're worried that there's some serious problem. So 99% of our job is reassurance. Obviously, occasionally there will be something more serious, but by and large, it's a happy time.
And unexplained and unexplainable rashes, I remember.
Yes, that's a very common one too, and often they're unexplainable to us as well.
Yes.
The other thing that we're asked about quite commonly is immunisations, what to have, and are there any worries about, or dangers rather, about the child having the vaccinations. And again, these days, it's very usual for us to be able to recommend all of the vaccinations.
And again, and that's where you come in as a health visitor. You can offer a lot of reassurance and advice on immunisations.
Yes, during usually the first few visits we will talk at some length about what is on offer, the diphtheria, tetanus, whooping cough and polio that will be offered initially at 2, 3 and 4 months, and the measles, mumps and rubella injection that's offered around 13 months. We'll explain as best we can the pros and cons and give them time to choose for themselves what they think is best within the guidance that we and the GP can give them.
All that said, Wally, do you think that some of the pram jams, both in pharmacies and in doctors' surgeries, could be avoided?
Yes, I think it could. With a little bit of planning on mum's side, I think she can perhaps think ahead and think about things like nappy rashes and these things that are probably bound to crop up, and go and talk to the pharmacist and get a suitable barrier cream, and don't use dad's talc on the baby's bum, this sort of thing. These sort of things can prevent those sort of cues, I think.
Well, thank you all for the moment very much indeed. Well, now we're on to the second round in this programme. Our baby is now between 5 and 14 months old. Are you ready? Here's question 1, and it's back to the main subject dominating baby's mind, food. Now, it may be found that between 4 and 6 months, there's a reluctance to take food from a spoon. So which course of action should you take? Should you A, wait until the baby is ready to eat, B, get anxious and angry, C, let him or her eat as much or as little as he wants, D, try a little food and often, E, force it down? So there are 5 answers there to choose from. Which do you think is the wisest course of action? Right, question 2. This table has 4 foods which you shouldn't give to your baby in the first year. Which are they? You can choose from full cream or skimmed milk, eggs, cheese, peanuts, bran, and mashed fresh fruits. Which shouldn't you give your baby up to a year? Question 3 is to do with motivation. See if you can suggest 4 ways a parent can stimulate the child's senses: hearing, seeing, touching and smelling in the first year. Question 4 is what can typical babies achieve in these 14 months? Jot down from this list those actions you think are attainable. First of all, can they use a spoon? Can they remove their own clothes? Can they tell you exactly what they want? Can they drink from a cup? Can they walk upstairs? Can they speak a few words? And can they kick a ball? So how did you get on? You'll have seen that those questions covered development, communication and nutrition. So let's put some answers to them. The first question covered baby's reluctance to take food from a spoon. Now, our recommendation is to let your baby eat as much or as little as it wishes. Don't force it, don't get anxious, and I know that's easier said than done, but that's the answer, as much as it wants, really. Question 2 looked at a baby's diet, and on this table are 4 foods, as I said, which shouldn't be offered at this time, and those are the full cream and skimmed milk, the bran and the peanuts. In fact, no cow's milk at all. The baby's system won't take it. Right, to discover some ideas for stimulating the child's senses, question 3. Let's look at this video sequence. It's important to stimulate the baby's hearing by talking to the baby, of course, playing gentle music, using bells perhaps, presenting the baby with a variety of sounds. Seeing, well, there are toys, mobiles to look at, beautiful flowers, not of course too much television. Feeling, well, that's the same really as seeing, but there are all sorts of different textures you can introduce a baby to. And smelling, different scents, flowers, both in the house and outside. Well, lastly, we had this list covering actions attainable by the average baby in the first 14 months. They are, the baby can use a spoon, can indicate to you what he wants. Babies of this age can drink from a cup and can say, on average, 3 to 5 words. What they can't do is undress or walk upstairs or kick a ball yet. Well, in our discussion on topics raised in this round, we welcome back our paediatric doctor, Harriet Hargreaves, and our health visitor, Anne Price. Harriet, first of all, let's explore in detail the baby's growth in this time. It is extraordinarily rapid, in fact, isn't it?
Yes, it is very. In fact, a baby can double its birth weight in the first 6 months. But obviously, how much the baby grows depends on how big it is at birth, and a small baby will grow much less fast than a very big baby.
And what does it learn in this time?
It learns an awful lot. Nobody quite knows what a baby actually knows at birth. They know an awful lot and can do an awful lot even the day they're born, but they develop very fast in the first 14 months and go from a baby who just lies to a baby who can walk about, has a few words, can feed himself or herself, and can show affection to the mother and play in quite a constructive way.
Because the temptation at this time is to look around at other mothers with babies about the same age and compare and say, well, my baby isn't sitting up yet and hers is. And
yes,
that's presumably
very difficult, yes. I think the important thing is to enjoy what your baby can do at that time and to know from your health visitor what your baby will be able to do next and look forward to the next stage and help the baby to get to the next stage, but not to worry that Mrs. Jones' baby is doing something else.
No doubt everything is unfolding as it should, as they say.
That's right, yes.
Anne Price, what about you on a day-to-day basis? What sort of things would you advise on just looking after a baby's welfare?
Well, obviously you recommend a healthy diet full of a broad spectrum of foods. But a major thing that we try to impress on mums is the need for them to actually take time to play with the baby and give the baby the opportunity to play, because it's through play that children develop their knowledge of the world and they learn all the complicated ideas through very simple things. So perhaps a child putting porridge in their hair, which we would find quite disgusting, is learning what sticky means and what porridge in their hair means. And if you give them the opportunity to play, they'll reach their maximum potential. So it needn't be expensive toys. It can be very simple things that you give them. I mean, mobiles can be made with hangers and pretty paper. A saucepan is as fascinating with a wooden spoon as a very expensive toy from one of the big shops. And it's time spent talking, taking the baby for a walk, explaining things. It's the simple things that help a child to develop their potential.
And Harriet Hargreaves, from a doctor's point of view, what advice would you give to people who are about to become parents or who are already parents of a very young child?
I think you can give too much advice because before you've become a parent you have no idea what it's going to mean. I think you have to say it's going to change your life entirely, and don't feel bad about asking for help, because you may well find, however well prepared you are, that you meet some problem that you had no idea was going to happen, that you feel quite differently about your baby from what you expected, and you should know who to turn to and not feel bad about asking.
Anything to add to that, Anne?
Yes, I'd say enjoy your baby. Babies are pretty resilient, a lot more resilient than we think they are, and if you spend time loving the baby, it's not going to come to a lot of harm, whatever you do to it at the end of the day. So just take time out to enjoy it.
And Dr. Hargreaves, thank you very much indeed. Right, we're going to devote the last round to considering the excited, fulfilled and exhausted couple who created this small bundle, the parents. Question Question 1. One of the first sharing activities is baby's bath time, a voyage of discovery for both parents, and it should be great fun for all of you. But there are quite a number of don'ts to bear in mind. Can you spot them here? We've used a doll for what will become obvious reasons.
It's all right, darling. I'll bath her tonight. Yeah. You naughty little pig. Right, in we pop.
Well, that did seem slightly over the top, I know, but it did highlight several common dilemmas for novice parents. I hope you managed to jot them down. Now, the second question for you, parents. You're preparing a shopping list of essential items to prepare for your baby's arrival. And put the quantity against those showing a question mark. This may seem obvious, and the size of the baby garment that was bought. How many towels, disposable nappies, feeding bottles and teats, cot blankets and sheets, sleeping suits, vests, plastic pants, mittens, booties and bibs? And what size should you choose in some of those cases? With the limited budgets most of us have available, the mistake of not buying enough is only slightly worse than buying too much. Right, now question 3 deals with safety. You wouldn't believe that this tiny bundle you're carrying across the threshold for the first time could be entering a veritable minefield. As the crawling starts, the dangers lurking in every home become apparent. So let's neutralise them before they can do any damage. See if you can name 2 potential dangers in each of these rooms. But on to question 4, the last in this round, and in many ways it highlights the most neglected and yet far-reaching problem of parenthood: personal feelings and emotions. First, suggest 2 ways the father may feel hurt and upset. Secondly, how does the mother expect to feel? And thirdly, 2 ways in which you can help each other. Again, we'll explore this vexed subject at the end of this round. So if you're ready, let's see how you got on. Answer 1. Where did we go wrong in bathing the baby? Well, actually, I think they were pretty rotten at it, as I'm sure you noticed. The tips are to prepare everything before you even bring the baby into the bathroom. The baby bath should have had the cold water in first. Suitable toiletries, not your own, but special ones for the baby, should be close at hand. Make sure you test the water. The old tried and tested method with the elbow still works before you put the baby in. Don't confuse the baby by treating him like a hot potato. And the washing schedule, wash his face first. Don't use too much talcum powder afterwards, particularly near his face. And again, watch out for drafts and dry those little creases with a soft towel. Our second question prepared you for a shopping trip. You were asked to fill in the quantity of items with question marks on this shopping list. Of course, it's only a rough suggestion, but here's the advice of the Health Visitors Association. 2 towels, 48 disposable nappies, 6 feeding bottles and teats, 4 cot blankets and sheets, 4 sleeping suits, 2 vests, 4 plastic pants, 2 pairs of mittens, 2 pairs of booties, and 3 bibs. And incidentally, on the size to buy, it's not an idea to buy everything the first size because, of course, the baby quickly grows out of it. So buy a few things the next size up. Question 3 was on safety. So let's go round the house now and see what needs careful attention, ready for those crawling and toddling days ahead. Joining me in the studio is Linda Stone, who's chairman of ROSPA's Home and Leisure Safety Committee and chairman of the ROSPA Council. So Linda, we'll start in the living room. I suppose sockets and plugs are the most obvious dangers.
Yes, along with windows that children can reach and try and climb out of. Toys on the floor are always a danger. Tables with sharp edges because the child can fall against them. And glass top tables like that one are dangerous. If you have got a glass top table, then use safety glass. If you have an open fire, a gas fire, any sort of fire, please make sure that you have a fire guard on it.
Halls and landings and stairs in particular are always a hazard too.
Yes, they need to be well lit. Use a stair gate if necessary. Carpet is softer to fall on than lino or wood, and lots of falls happen on stairs. So you also have to be careful that you don't leave toys and small items on the stairs that you can trip over.
Now, the kitchen is obviously a very dangerous place, and there are a lot of schools every year, aren't there, with children?
Yes, they are. They happen very easily. Children reach up for saucepan handles if they're sticking out from the edge of the cooker. They reach out for trailing kettle flexes. They pull cups of tea and coffee over themselves, which are particularly dangerous because 15 minutes after you've poured a cup of tea or coffee, it's still hot enough to scald a small child. They also like reaching up for irons. They like ferreting under the sink for your household cleaners. So do try and keep them out of sight and out of reach.
But children actually can reach much further than you think, can't they?
Yes, a lot further.
What about the bathroom and then the bedroom?
The bathroom is dangerous because most people keep their household medicines there. And if they're in a lockable medicine cabinet, that's not too bad, although the bathroom isn't necessarily the best place for medicines because it gets hot and steamy. They also keep bathroom cleaners and cosmetics and toiletries in there, perfume and so on, and they're also things that children will try and eat sometimes, so do be wary.
And the bedroom?
Make sure that the bed isn't under the window so a child can't climb out, and make sure the window's locked. Don't leave a hot water bottle in the cot, and when you're buying toys, use your common sense. Buy a reputable make from a reputable source, check that the eyes don't come out, there's no sharp corners, sharp spikes in the toy, no further the child can chew off and choke on.
So basically it's taking another look at your house and having a complete rethink with the new baby in mind.
Yes, it is. It's using your common sense and trying to think ahead of the baby.
Well, Linda Stone, thank you very much indeed. Very useful advice. Well, now to question 4 about your personal feelings and emotions. Now, obviously, this is very subjective and you'll have your own ideas, but there's food for thought in the answers, and who better to discuss them with me than Claire Rayner. Welcome, Claire.
Hello.
Now, first of all, the father and his frustrations. Fathers can find it a bit tough sometimes competing suddenly with a new baby.
Well, if they see it that way, if the couple ever saw it that way, yes. But modern couples, by and large, tend to be much closer, right from the word go. There's a great tendency now for young fathers to be involved with antenatal care and so on, right from the beginning, in which case they'll have less of a problem. But yes, a traditional father may think, oh gosh, you know, I can't be waited on the way I used to be, which is appalling if they're doing it. I mean, they shouldn't be waited on anyway. But I mean, if he's had that sort of, you know, constant care from his wife, he may resent having to share it. So a certain amount of adaptation before the baby's born, the earlier the better. And of course sex comes into it as well. That's a very important point. Some men express all their emotions sexually. They can't imagine being loving, just cuddling and kissing and just being close. They've got to have sex as well. And if a woman isn't in the mood for it, because it's too near the birth, a whole lot of reasons, this can set up all sorts of friction. So that needs to be thought about as well. And there can be a link, of course, with some depression. If a mother gets depressed, then the loss of sex drive is almost inevitable. And so they need to talk and think about that. Yeah.
Does everybody have sort of some degree of postnatal depression, do you think?
Do you know, Sue, I think they do. I mean, the figures that you'll be told, the midwives and the doctors tell you, well, it's 10% or whatever. I think every woman has a certain amount of this. I think it's a natural biological thing. I think it's the way we're built to stop us getting pregnant again too soon. You have to be turned in, you know, on yourself. I really do think it's as natural as breathing. But we expect women today to be everything, don't we? Super mothers, super wives, super lovers, super at the lot. We don't have to be super. You don't always have to be perfect. You don't always have to worry about a bit of dust in the corners. You are allowed to be human when you've got a new baby. And I think you should enjoy it and allow yourself to take life easy and spoil yourself whenever you get the chance.
I was going to say, it's again a bit of a shock when you're used to being very efficient. Either you're out at work or you're used to being running the home, and suddenly you can't do any of that, and you feel just like, I used to feel like a sort of Meals on Wheels.
I know, you do, yeah. And the more you've got to do, the more you make yourself do. Do you remember that? Every cupboard had to be tidy. I learned early on. Oh, I did. I thought dirt in the corners doesn't matter. Tidiness. Now, being tidy, and it makes you safe as well, of course. Tidy matters. A bit grubby, no one's really going to care unduly. And then you'll be comfortable. And you must also train your parents, your in-laws, your friends. Get them used to the idea that if they're going to come and call, which is lovely, they don't stay too long. Better to leave you wanting more. And they don't expect you to run around after them making the cup of tea and all the rest of it. And they don't ever pick up your baby without your permission. Do you know, that's an important point. Young, do you remember what it felt like if someone else picked up your baby?
Yes, you're on tenterhooks.
Well,
yes.
puppies, you know, mothers, dogs with puppies, and cats, they get very resentful. Well, human mothers are just the same. So you need to get this across to your friends and family. That a bit sensitive about you. You are also an important person.
So partners should put up a united front in all this,
Very
shouldn't they?
much
Help
so,
each other.
very much so. And it's awful, absolutely awful, if the in-laws start to compete with each other. Oh, that can be disaster, it really can. And it's very important then that you don't take sides. And even if you do think your mother's got every right to behave as she has and your mother-in-law's being awful, or vice versa, you bite your tongue on that, both of you. And you should be united and make it clear to both sets of parents that this is something you can't tolerate, that you can't be bullied, you can't be interfered with. It's your life and your baby. And then everyone will enjoy it, you see.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Claire Rayner, for joining us. Thanks also to everyone in our resident team of specialists. And thank you too very much for watching and joining in. Whatever stage of pregnancy or parenthood you've reached, remember to spare a thought for your own welfare amidst all the attention that you're giving to the baby. Happy, healthy babies need happy, healthy parents. So look after yourself and each other and enjoy your baby. Goodbye.